Zizhi Tongjian, Chronicles of Qin, 2. This video stays true to the original text, featuring readings in both classical and vernacular Chinese or English. It began in the year of Jiaoyin and ended in the year of Renchen, spanning a total of 19 years of history, witnessing the iron-blooded journey of the Qin Empire's unification. This was the 20th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Jiaosu in the sexagenary cycle, corresponding to 227 BC, a turbulent page in history. Jin Ke, the envoy of Yan, arrived in Xianying. Through the king's favorite minister Mengjia, he requested an audience with humble words. The king of Qin was delighted, dressed in ceremonial robes, and arranged the grandest 9-guest ritual to receive him. Jin Ke respectfully presented the map to the king. As the map was unrolled to its end, a gleaming dagger suddenly appeared. He seized the king's sleeve and lunged at him with the weapon. Before the dagger could strike, the king leaped up in terror, tearing his sleeve. Jin Ke pursued him, and the king, unable to draw his sword immediately, ran frantically around the bronze pillars of the hall to escape. The assembled officials were all stunned. Since the incident occurred so abruptly and unexpectedly, they all lost their composure and poise. According to Qin law, officials attending the court were forbidden from carrying any weapons. In the chaos, the attendants could only fight Jin Ke with their bare hands, shouting, "Your Majesty, carry the sword on your back." Carrying the sword on his back, the king finally drew it and struck Jin Ke, severing his left thigh. Jin Ke, incapacitated, threw his dagger at the king, but it struck the bronze pillar instead. Knowing that his mission had failed, Jin Ke cursed, "The reason I failed was because I wanted to kidnap you alive to force a treaty and repay the crown prince's kindness." The king then had Jin Ke dismembered as a public example. Furiously, he dispatched more troops to Shao to join General Wang Jian in attacking Yan. They fought the combined forces of Yan and Dai west of the Yi River and crushed them. In the 21st year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Yihai, or 226 BC, Qin's iron cavalry continued to trample the dignity of the ancient feudal lords across the eastern lands. In the winter, the 10th month, Wang Jian captured Ji. The king of Yan and the crown prince led their elite troops east to seek refuge in Liaodong, pursued closely by Li Xian. King Jia of Dai sent a letter to the king of Yan, advising him to kill Crown Prince Dan and present his head to appease Qin. Dan hid in the Yan River, but the king of Yan sent an assassin to kill his son. Despite the offering, the king of Qin continued his assault. Wang Ban attacked Chu and captured over 10 cities. The king asked General Li Xian, "I wish to take Jing, Chu. In your estimation, how many men would be sufficient?" Li Xian replied, "No more than 200,000. The king asked Wang Jian the same, and Wang Jian said, "It cannot be done with fewer than 600,000. The king said, "General Wang, you are getting old, why so timid?" He then dispatched Li Xian and Meng Tian with 200,000 men to attack Chu. Consequently, Wang Jian retired to Pingyang on the pretext of illness. Time flowed into the 22nd year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Bingzi, or 225 BC, as the situation in the Central Plains reached its final decisive moment. Wang Ban attacked Wei and diverted the waters of the Yellow River and Hongdou to flood Dalian. After 3 months, the walls collapsed. King Jia of Wei surrendered and was executed, thus ending the state of Wei. The king sent an envoy to the lord of Anling, saying, "I wish to exchange 500 li of land for Anling." The lord of Anling replied, "Your Majesty confers a great favor by trading large for small, and I am fortunate. However, I received this land from the late king of Wei and wish to guard it to the end. I dare not exchange it." The king, respecting his righteousness, granted his request. General Li Xian attacked Pingyu while Meng Tian attacked Qingqiu. They dealt a devastating blow to the Chu army, showcasing the overwhelming power of the Qin forces. Li Xian subsequently attacked and captured Yanning, then led his troops westward to join forces with Meng Tian at Chengfu. The Chu forces took the opportunity to pursue them closely, marching for 3 days and nights without rest. They decisively defeated Li Xian, stormed 2 of his fortified camps, and killed 7 commandants. Li Xian fled back to Qin in defeat. When the king heard the news, he was furious. He traveled personally to Pingyang to apologize to Wang Jian, saying, "I failed to use your counsel, and Li Xian has indeed brought disgrace upon the Qin army. Even though you are ill, General, how can you bear to abandon me now?" Wang Jian excused himself on the grounds of illness, saying he could not command. The king said, "Enough. Say no more of this." Wang Jian said, "If you must use me, it cannot be done with fewer than 600,000 men." The king said, "I shall follow your plan." Then, thus, Wang Jian led 600,000 men to attack Chu. The king saw them off at Bahai. Wang Jian took the opportunity to request a vast number of fine fields and houses. The king said, "General, you may go. Why should you worry about poverty?" Wang Jian replied, "As your general, despite my merits, I may never be enfeoffed as a marquis. Therefore, while I enjoy your favor, I ask for these lands and houses to establish an estate for my descendants." The king laughed heartily. Once Wang Jian had set out and reached the pass, he sent messengers back 5 times to request even better, fertile lands. Someone remarked, "General, your requests for rewards are truly excessive." Wang Jian said, "Not so. The king is suspicious by nature and does not trust others. Now he has emptied the nation of its soldiers and entrusted them solely to me. If I do not repeatedly ask for lands and houses for my descendants to demonstrate my simple goals, I would only cause the king to sit in suspicion of me." In the 23rd year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Dingzhou, or 224 BC, Wang Jian captured the region from south of Cheng to Pinyu. Hearing that Wang Jian had come with an even larger army, the Chu people mobilized all their national forces to resist him. Wang Jian fortified his camps and refused to engage in battle. The Chu forces repeatedly challenged him to fight, but he never came out. Wang Jian allowed his soldiers to rest, wash, and bathe daily, providing them with excellent food and drink and treating them with kindness. He even personally ate with the lowliest soldiers. After a long time, Wang Jian sent someone to ask, "Are there any games in the camp?" The reply was, "They are busy throwing stones and jumping great distances." Wang Jian said, "They are ready." Since the Chu forces could not find a battle, they withdrew to the east. Wang Jian pursued them and ordered his bravest warriors to strike, dealing a massive defeat to the Chu army. Reaching the south of Qi, they killed General Xiang Yan, and the Chu army subsequently broke and fled. Wang Jian used the momentum of the victory to capture and pacify the various cities and towns. In the 24th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Wu Yin, or 223 BC, the fate of Chu reached its conclusion. Wang Jian and Mang Wu captured Fuchu, the king of Chu, and established Chu commandery on its former lands. In the 25th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Jimao, or 222 BC, the great cause of unification was nearly at hand. A massive force was mobilized, and Wang Ben was dispatched to attack Liaodong, where he captured King Xi of Yan. The chronicler Sima Guan remarked, "Prince Dan of Yan could not master a single moment of rage and thus provoked the tiger-ran wolf-like Qin. His planning was reckless and his strategy shallow, stirring up resentment and hastening disaster. He caused the ancestral temple of Duke Shao, the founder of Yan, to lose its sacrifices and vanish. What crime could be greater than this? Yet some commentators call him wise. Is that not a profound error? Now, those who govern the state should appoint officials based on talent, establish policies according to rights, embrace the people with benevolence, and deal with neighbors with good faith. Thus, the right people fill the offices, governance finds its proper measure, the people cherish the ruler's virtue, and neighboring states are drawn to its righteousness. In such a case, the state will be as solid as a massive rock and as brilliant as a blazing fire. Those who strike it will be shattered, those who trespass against it will be scorched. Even in the face of a violent and powerful nation, what is there to fear? Dan abandoned these principles and did not act upon them. Instead, with a great state of 10,000 chariots, he acted on the petty rage of a common man and indulged in the schemes of a bandit. His cause was ruined and he himself was executed, leaving the state in ruins. Is this not truly tragic? Those who walk on their knees or crawl prostrate are not truly respectful. Those who constantly repeat their words and emphasize their promises are not truly trustworthy. Those who waste gold and scatter jade are not truly benevolent. And those who cut their throats or rip open their stomachs are not truly brave. In short, if a person's plans are not far-reaching and their actions are not righteous, they are likely just like the likes of Bai Gongsheng of the state of Chu. Jin Ku, harboring only the personal gratitude for being pampered, ignored the safety of his entire clan. Attempting to strengthen the state of Yan and weaken the state of Qin with a mere 18-inch dagger, is this not the height of folly? Therefore, the great scholar Yang Xiong commented that Yao Li was but a trivial loss like that of a spider, Niezhong was a tragic waste of a brave warrior, and Jin Ku was a futile expenditure of an assassin. None of them can be characterized as truly righteous. Yang Xiong also remarked, as for Jin Ku, he merely stole the name of a gentleman's righteousness. How true indeed. Meanwhile, Wang Ban attacked Dai and captured King Jia of Dai. Wang Jian completely pacified all the Chu territories south of the Yangtze River, compelled the leaders of the Baiwai tribes to surrender, and established the Kuaiji Commandery. In the 5th month, a grand nationwide festival was held, where people were permitted to gather and drink in celebration. Initially, Queen Dowager Jun of Qi was a virtuous and wise woman. She was cautious in dealing with Qin and maintained good faith with the other feudal lords. Furthermore, Qi was located on the eastern coast. As Qin tirelessly attacked the states of the three Jins, Yan, and Chu day and night, those 5 nations were too occupied with their own survival to act together. Consequently, during the 40-plus years of King Jian's reign, Qi remained remarkably free from the ravages of war. When Queen Dowager Jun was on her deathbed, she solemnly cautioned King Jian, saying, "Among your ministers, such and such a person is the only one fit for great responsibility." King Jian replied, "Please let me write it down." The Queen Dowager said, "Good." King Jian fetched a brush and a wooden tablet to record her words, but at that moment, she sighed and said, "I am old and have already forgotten." After the Queen Dowager passed away, Hou Sheng became the Prime Minister of Qi. He accepted vast amounts of gold from Qin spies. When his retainers visited Qin, the Qin government likewise lavished them with gold. These retainers all acted as double agents, urging the King of Qi to pay court to Qin, advising him not to prepare for war or assist the other 5 states in attacking Qin. Because of this, Qin was able to eliminate the other 5 nations one by one. As the King of Qi was about to depart to pay court to Qin, the Sima of Yongmen stepped forward and asked, "Is a king established for the sake of the state, or for the sake of the king himself?" The king replied, "For the sake of the state." The Sima said, "Since a king is established for the state, why then does your majesty leave the state to enter Qin?" The king felt ashamed and ordered his carriage to turn back. The grandee of Jimao, upon hearing of this, came to see the king and said, "The territory of Qi spans 4,000 li, and we have millions of armored soldiers." The officials of the 3 Jins all resent Qin, and hundreds of them are now scattered between Yi and Wan. If your majesty recruits them and gives them an army of 1,000,000 to recover the former lands of the 3 Jins, we could strike directly into Qin's Linjin Pass. Likewise, the officials of Chu are unwilling to serve Qin, and hundreds of them are in the region south of the city. If your majesty recruits them and grants them 1,000,000-strong army to recover Chu's former lands, we can enter Qin through Wu Pass. If done this way, the prestige of Qi can be restored and Qin can be destroyed. It is not merely about preserving our own state. However, the king of Qi did not listen. In the 26th year of the first emperor, the year of Gangchen, 221 BC, Wang Ban attacked Qi from the south of Yan and suddenly entered Linzi. None of the citizens dared to resist. Qin sent agents to entice the king of Qi, promising him a fief of 500 li of land upon surrender. The king of Qi then surrendered. Qin relocated him to Gong and placed him in a barren grove of pines and cypresses, where he was left to starve to death. The people of Qi resented King Jian for not joining the coalition against Qin sooner and for listening to treacherous retainers who caused the nation's fall. They sang a song. Is it the pines? Is it the cypresses? It was those retainers who sent King Jian to live in Gong and die. This expressed their deep hatred for his lack of foresight in employing such men. The subject Sima Guang says, although the theories of vertical alliance and horizontal alliance are full of countless variations and tactics, the fundamental essence is that forming the vertical alliance unity among the states was the true interest of the 6 nations in resisting Qin and ensuring their survival. In ancient times, the sage kings established myriad states and befriended the feudal lords, enabling them to interact through audiences and visits, rejoice together through banquets, and unite through assemblies and covenants. This was done for no other reason than the desire for them to work with one heart and combine strength to protect the peace of the world and the security of their nations. If those 6 states had been able to befriend one another with good faith and righteousness and cooperate sincerely, then even though Qin was as powerful and brutal as a tiger or wolf, how could it have possibly destroyed them one by one? The 3 Jins Han, Shao, and Wei served as the protective screen and shield for Qi and Chu, while Qi and Chu were the very roots and foundations upon which the 3 Jins relied. Their geographical positions and strategic situations supported each other, as intimately linked as the outer surface and inner lining of a garment, neither able to survive without the other. Therefore, if the 3 Jins were to attack Qi and Chu, they would be severing their own life-sustaining roots, and if Qi and Chu were to attack the 3 Jins, they would be dismantling the very gates and screens that protected them. How can there be any logic in dismantling one's own defenses to appease a bandit, while saying, "The bandit will love me and refrain from attacking"? Is this not utterly preposterous and contrary to reason? When King Zhen of Qin had just unified the world, he believed his virtue encompassed the 3 sovereigns and his achievements surpassed the 5 emperors. Consequently, he changed his title to emperor. He ordained that his commands be called Zhi, statutes, his edicts Shao, decrees, and designated the word Zhen as the exclusive imperial self-reference. He posthumously honored his late father, King Zhuangxiang, as Grand Emperor. His imperial decree stated, to assign a posthumous name based on a person's actions after their death is effectively allowing his son to judge his father and a subject to judge his monarch. It is utterly meaningless and highly inappropriate. From this day forward, the system of posthumous names is abolished. I shall be the first emperor, and subsequent generations shall be numbered accordingly, 2nd generation, 3rd generation, and so on unto the 10,000th, passing it down without end. Initially, during the reigns of Kings Wei and Xian of Qi, the philosopher Zhou Yan expounded and wrote upon the cyclical movement of the 5 virtues, the 5 elements. When the first emperor unified the world, scholars from Qi presented this theory to him. The first emperor adopted this doctrine, believing that since the Shou dynasty possessed the virtue of fire, and Qin had replaced Shou, then according to the principle of the 5 elements conquest, where water overcomes fire, Qin must possess the virtue of water. Consequently, the first emperor began to change the calendar, ordaining that imperial audiences and celebrations commence on the 1st day of the 10th month. Clothing, banners, and ceremonial emblems all favored the color black, and the number 6 was established as the fundamental standard for all measures and calculations. Chancellor Wang Yuan and others advised, the lands of Yan, Qi, and Jing, Chu, are distant. If we do not appoint kings there, we will have no means to keep them in order. We request that you unfaith your sons as kings in those regions. The first emperor submitted the proposal for discussion. Minister of Justice Li Si argued, when King Wan and King Wu of Shou initially unfaithed their brothers and sons, they were very numerous. However, as generations passed, their ties grew distant, and they attacked one another like mortal enemies, and the Son of Heaven was powerless to stop them. Now that all within the 4 seas has been unified by your Majesty's divine authority, the whole land has been divided into commanderies and prefectures. As for your sons and meritorious officials, it is enough to reward them generously with public taxes. In this way, they will be very easy to control. Ensuring that there is no dissenting will throughout the land is the true method for lasting peace. Establishing feudal lords is disadvantageous. The first emperor said, the whole world has suffered from endless fighting precisely because of the existence of feudal lords and kings. Thanks to the protection of my ancestral temple, the world has just been settled. If we were to re-establish feudal states now, we would be planting the seeds of war. To then seek peace and tranquility, would that not be exceedingly difficult? The Minister of Justice's counsel is correct. He divided the world into 36 commanderies, and in each commandery, he appointed a governor for administration, a commandant for military affairs, and an inspector for oversight. He ordered the confiscation of all weapons throughout the land and gathered them in the capital, Xianying. They were melted down to cast musical instrument stands and 12 colossal bronze statues. Each statue weighed 1,000 dan and was placed within the imperial palace. He standardized the laws, weights, and measures across the empire. Simultaneously, he forcibly relocated 120,000 wealthy and influential families from across the land to reside in Xianying. The ancestral temples, the Zhongtai Palace, and the Shanglin Garden were all situated south of the Wei River. Every time a feudal state was defeated, the first emperor ordered that the designs of their palaces be sketched and replicated on the slopes north of Xianying. These buildings overlooked the Wei River to the south, extending eastward from Yongmen to the confluence of the Jing and Wei rivers. Tiers of halls, elevated walkways, and winding corridors were all interconnected. The first emperor filled these luxurious palaces with the beauties, bells, and drums seized from the defeated states. It was the 27th year of the first emperor, the year of Xinci, or 220 BC. The first emperor toured the commanderies of Longxi and Beidi, reached Mount Jitu, and passed through the Huizhong region. He constructed the Xian Palace south of the Wei River, later renaming it the Po Temple, symbolizing the North Star. From the Po Temple, a road was built leading to Mount Li, and the front hall of the Gongguan Palace was constructed. He also built walled galleries connecting Xianying to these locations and developed high-speed imperial highways throughout the empire. This historical scroll unfolds to the 20th year after the first emperor unified the world, the year of Renwu in the sexagenary cycle, or 219 BC, when the Qin Empire was at its peak of glory. The majestic first emperor led a grand procession eastward through various commanderies and prefectures. He ascended Mount Yi in Zhou and erected a stone monument there to proclaim his illustrious achievements in unifying the world. At this time, the first emperor summoned 70 Confucian scholars from the land of Lu and gathered them at the foot of Mount Tai to discuss the sacred and ancient Fengshan ceremonies. The scholars debated among themselves. Some said, in antiquity, for the Fengshan rites, cattails wrapped the wheels to avoid harming the earth, stones, or plants. They simply swept the ground and used dried straw mats for the ceremony. Their opinions were conflicting and inconsistent. The first emperor considered their suggestions impractical and difficult to implement. Because of this, he began to dismiss and exclude the Confucian scholars. The emperor then cleared the carriage road, ascending Mount Tai from the southern slope to the summit to erect a monument praising his virtues. He then descended via the northern slope to perform the Shang ritual at Liangfu. The ritual largely adopted the practices used by the Grand Invocator in worshipping the high god at Yong. However, the details of the consecration were kept secret, so the world had no way to record them. Subsequently, the first emperor traveled eastward to the seashore, performing rituals to worship famous mountains, great rivers, and the 8 gods. The emperor climbed Mount Lengye to the south and was greatly delighted by it, staying for 3 months. He constructed the Lengye Terrace and erected a stone monument to praise his virtues and express his immense satisfaction. Originally, men like Song Wuji and Xianmen Zigo from Yan claimed to possess the secrets of immortality and techniques for physical transformation. Eccentric scholars in Yan and Qi vied with each other to learn and propagate these arts. Since the reigns of King Wei and King Xian of Qi and King Shao of Yan, all had believed these claims and sent people into the sea to seek Penlai, Fangsang, and Inshou, 3 divine mountains said to be in the Bohai Sea, not far from humanity. It was feared that just as one approached, the winds would blow the ships away. It was said that some had reached them, where various immortals and the elixir of life were all to be found. When the first emperor reached the coast, alchemists like Su Fu of Qi vied to submit petitions, requesting that after a period of fasting, they be allowed to take young boys and girls to seek the immortals. Thereupon, Su Fu was dispatched with thousands of youths to seek the divine mountains. The ships navigated the seas, but all returned blaming the winds, claiming, "We could not reach them, but we saw them from afar." On his return, the emperor passed through Pengcheng, where he fasted and prayed, wishing to retrieve the show tripods from the sea river. He sent 1,000 men to dive for them, but they could not be found. He then crossed the Wai River to the southwest and proceeded to Mount Heng and Nanjun. Sailing down the river to the Xiang Mountain Temple, he encountered a gale so fierce they were nearly unable to cross. The emperor asked his scholars, "What kind of deity is this Xiang Jun?" They replied, We have heard that they were the daughters of Yao and the wives of Shan, who were buried here. Enraged, the emperor ordered 3,000 convicts to fell all the trees on Xianying Mountain, stripping the slopes bare until they were the color of red clay. He then returned from Nanjun via the Wu Pass. Originally, Zhang Liang of Han came from a family that had served as chancellors of Han for 5 generations. When Han fell, Zhang expanded his vast family fortune, seeking revenge for his state. History turns to the 29th year of the first emperor, the year of Guiwei, or 218 BC. During the emperor's eastern tour, reaching Balangsha in Yangu, Zhang Liang ordered a strong man to strike the emperor with an iron hammer, but it mistakenly hit the attendant carriage. The emperor was shocked and searched for the assassin but found no one. He then ordered a massive nationwide manhunt for 10 days. The emperor then ascended Mount Shifu and carved a monument. Shortly after, he went to Langye and returned home via Shangdang. In the 31st year of the first emperor, 216 BC, he ordered the commoners to self-report and verify their land holdings. In the 32nd year of the first emperor, 215 BC, he went to Jieshi and sent Lu Sheng of Yan to find the immortal Xianmen, carving an inscription on the Jieshi gate. He ordered the demolition of inner and outer city walls and the opening of blocked embankments. He toured the northern border and entered via Shangjun. Lu Sheng returned from his mission into the sea and presented a prophetic book, which stated, "That which destroys Qin is who." Taking the prophecy to heart, the first emperor dispatched General Meng Tian with an army of 300,000 to attack the Xiongnu in the north. It was the 33rd year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Ding Hai in the sexagenary cycle, corresponding to 214 BC. The first emperor mobilized former fugitives, matrilocal sons-in-law, and merchants to serve as soldiers. They conquered the wild mountain lands of the southern Yu, establishing the commanderies of Guilin, Nanhai, and Xiang. Furthermore, 500,000 banished citizens were relocated to garrison the 5 ridges and live among the Yu people. The renowned General Meng Tian drove out the Xiongnu and reclaimed the lands south of the Yellow River, organizing the territory into 44 counties. They constructed the Great Wall, adapting to the natural terrain to establish strategic fortresses and passes. Stretching from Lintao in the west to Liaodong in the east, it extended for over 10,000 li. Thereupon they crossed the river, occupied Mount Yang, and wound their way northward. The army remained stationed in the wilderness for over 10 years. Meng Tian resided in Shangjun for a long time to govern the region, and his military prestige struck terror into the hearts of the Xiongnu. It was the 34th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Wuzi, corresponding to 213 BC. The first emperor decreed that judicial officers who were biased in their rulings, as well as those found during case reviews to have committed intentional malfeasance or unintentional errors, were to be banished to build the Great Wall or to settle in the southern Yu territories. Chancellor Li Si submitted a memorial saying, "In former times, when the feudal lords contended with one another, they recruited wandering scholars with generous rewards. Now the world is unified, and the laws and decrees emanate from a single source. Commoners should stay at home and devote themselves to farming and crafts, while scholars should study the laws and regulations. Now these scholars do not follow the present system but study the past instead, using it to criticize current policies. They confuse and disturb the common people, joining together to denigrate the laws and teachings of the state. When a decree is issued, they discuss it based on their own specialized knowledge. Privately they disagree in their hearts, while in public they gossip in the streets. They criticize the sovereign to gain fame, prize eccentricity as excellence, and lead the masses to create slanders. If such behavior is not suppressed, the sovereign's authority will decline above, while factions will form below. Suppressing them is beneficial. I request that all historical records not belonging to the Qing Chronicles be burned. Except for the books held by the court scholars, Bashi, anyone in the empire who possesses copies of the classic of poetry, the classic of history, or the writings of the 100 schools must surrender them to the governors or commandants to be burned collectively. Those who dare to discuss the classic of poetry or history among themselves shall be executed in the public marketplace. Those who use the past to criticize the present shall be executed along with their entire clans. Officials who witness or know such acts and fail to report them shall be punished with the same crime. If within 30 days of the order's issuance the books are not burned, the owners shall be tattooed and sentenced to forced labor on the walls. The only books exempted are those on medicine, divination, and agriculture. If anyone wishes to learn the laws, they must take the officials as their teachers. The imperial decree replied, approved. Cheng Yuhui said to Kung Fu, Qin is about to destroy the records of the former kings. Since you are the master of these classics, you are in great danger. Zizhi replied, I pursue a field of study that is useless in the eyes of Qin. Only my friends understand me. Since Qin is not my friend, why should I be in danger? I shall hide these books and wait for a time when they are sought. When that time comes, there will be no more worries. It was the 35th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Jichou, corresponding to 212 BC. He dispatched Meng Tian to clear the straight road stretching from Jiuyuan to Yongyang. They cut through mountains and filled valleys for a distance of 1,800 li, yet after several years, it remained unfinished. The first emperor felt that Xianying was overcrowded and that the ancestral palaces were too small. Thus, he began constructing a new imperial complex within the Shangling Garden south of the Wei River, starting with the front hall, the Yipeng Palace. The front hall was 500 paces from east to west and 50 gong from north to south. Above, it could seat 10,000 people. Below, flags 5 zong high could be raised. Covered galleries for carriages encircled it, leading directly from the palace to the southern mountains, where the mountain peaks were marked as the palace gates. They built multi-leveled walkways crossing the Wei River from Yipeng to connect with Xianying, designed to resemble the celestial galleries that span the Milky Way from the pole star to the encampment mansion. Over 700,000 emasculated convicts and prisoners were assigned to labor on either the Yipeng Palace or the tomb at Montli. Stone for sarcophagi was quarried from the northern mountains, and timber from the lands of Shu and Jing was transported, all arriving at the site. Within the passes, there were 300 palaces, and beyond the passes, over 400 more. They erected a stone monument at the border of Chu on the eastern coast to serve as the east gate of Qin. Subsequently, 30,000 households were moved to Li and 50,000 to Yungyang, all of whom were exempted from taxes and labor for 10 years. The alchemist Lu Sheng advised the first emperor, saying, according to the secret arts, the sovereign should occasionally travel incognito to ward off evil spirits. When evil spirits are averted, the true persons, immortals, will arrive. I hope that your Majesty's residence remains unknown to anyone. Only then might the elixir of immortality be obtained. The first emperor said, I admire the true persons. He then began calling himself true person instead of using the imperial Zhen. He then ordered that the 270 palaces and pavilions within a 200 li radius of Xianying be connected by multi-leveled and walled galleries. He filled them with curtains, bells, drums, and beauties, decreeing that each should remain in its assigned station without moving. Wherever the emperor traveled or stayed, anyone who revealed his location was punished with death. Once, when the first emperor visited the Liangshan Palace, he looked down from the mountain and saw that the chancellor's retinue of carriages and horsemen was very numerous, which displeased him. One of the palace attendants secretly informed the chancellor, who subsequently reduced the size of his retinue. Enraged, the first emperor said, some attendant has leaked my words. He launched an investigation, but no one confessed. He then ordered that all those who had been in his presence at the time be arrested and executed. From then on, no one knew the emperor's whereabouts. The ministers who needed imperial decisions on state affairs all had to wait for word at the Xianying Palace. At that time, two scholars named Hou Sheng and Lu Sheng criticized and gossiped about the first emperor's actions in private, and then they secretly fled from the capital to avoid punishment. Upon hearing of their escape, the first emperor was furious and said, I treated Lu Sheng and his associates with immense respect and rewarded them generously, yet they dared to slander me. I shall send officials to investigate the scholars remaining in Xianying, for some of them must be spreading wicked rumors to confuse and unsettle the common people. Consequently, the emperor ordered the censors to interrogate all scholars in Xianying. In fear, the scholars accused one another, leading to the identification of over 460 individuals who had violated the laws. They were all buried alive in Xianying, and the news was spread throughout the land as a deterrent to others. Furthermore, even more disgraced scholars were conscripted and banished to the remote frontiers. Fusu, the eldest son of the first emperor, advised him, saying, "These scholars all recite and follow the teachings of Confucius. Now, your majesty is punishing them with such severe loss. I fear this will lead to unrest throughout the land." Enraged, the emperor ignored the advice and instead dispatched Fusu to the north to supervise General Meng Tian's army in Shangjun. Time passed into the 36th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Ganin, which was 211 BC. A meteorite fell in Dongjun. Someone secretly carved words onto the stone, saying, "Upon the first emperor's death, his land will be divided." When the emperor heard this, he was shocked and dispatched censors to interrogate the local residents one by one. Since no one confessed and no culprit could be found, the emperor cruelly ordered the execution of all people living near the meteorite and had the inscribed stone burned to cinders. The emperor ordered the relocation of 30,000 households to the Yuzhong region north of the Yellow River, and generously granted each household one level of noble rank. Entering the 37th year of the first emperor's reign, the year of Xinmao, which was 210 BC. In the 10th month of that winter, on the day of Guqiu, the first emperor set out on another tour. Left Chancellor Li Si accompanied him, while Right Chancellor Feng Quji remained behind to guard the capital and manage daily affairs. The first emperor had over 20 sons, but his favorite was his youngest, Hu Hai. Hu Hai requested to accompany his father on the tour, and the emperor granted his permission. By the 11th month, the tour reached the Yunmeng marshes, where the emperor performed a remote sacrifice to the ancient sage King Shan at Mount Jui. Then, he sailed down the Yangtze River, visited Jieka, crossed the seashoals, passed through Danyang, and arrived at Qiantang, facing the surging waters of the Qiantang River. Because the waters of the Qiantang River were fierce and the waves treacherous, the emperor ordered a detour of 120 li to the west to cross through a gorge. He ascended the famous Mount Kuaiji, sacrificed to the Great Yu, and gazed toward the South China Sea, erecting a stone monument to praise Qin's achievements. On his return journey, he passed through the land of Wu and crossed the Yangtze River at Jiangqing. The procession traveled north along the coastline, reaching Langya and Shifu. By the sea, the first emperor saw a giant fish and shot it dead himself. Then, he headed west along the coast, but upon reaching Pinyuan Crossing, he fell ill. The first emperor had an intense loathing for the word death, so none of the ministers in his retinue dared to mention anything related to funeral arrangements or dying in his presence. As his illness worsened, the emperor realized his time was short. He ordered Zhao Gao, the prefect of the palace grand stables who managed the imperial seals, to draft a decree to be sent to Fusu in the north. It said, "Return to the capital for my funeral, meet at Xianying, and bury me." The decree had been sealed and was kept by Zhao Gao, but it had not yet been handed to the messenger. In the autumn, on the day of Bingyin in the 7th month, the first emperor passed away at the Shikyu Terrace. Chancellor Li Si, believing that the emperor's death occurring during the tour might trigger power struggles among the princes or unrest throughout the empire, decided to keep the death a secret and refrain from mourning. He had the coffin placed inside a Wenyang carriage and arranged for favorite eunuchs to ride along as they usually did. At every stop, servants presented meals as usual, and officials reported state affairs through the carriage curtains. The eunuchs would then feign the emperor's approval from inside. Only Hu Hai, Zhao Gao, and 5 or 6 trusted eunuchs knew the truth. Initially, the first emperor greatly honored and favored the Meng family, trusting them implicitly. Meng Tian served as a general abroad, while Meng Yi stayed at court to participate in strategic deliberations. Known for their loyalty and integrity, no generals or ministers dared to compete with them. Zhao Gao was of low birth and had undergone castration. The emperor, hearing of his competence and thorough knowledge of judicial laws, appointed him prefect of the palace grand stables. He also tasked Zhao Gao with instructing Hu Hai in legal adjudication, and Hu Hai came to favor him greatly. Zhao Gao once committed a grave crime, and the first emperor ordered Meng Yi to prosecute him. Meng Yi determined that, according to the law, Zhao Gao should be sentenced to death. However, believing Zhao Gao to be quick-witted and capable, the emperor pardoned him and restored his rank. Zhao Gao, long favored by Hu Hai and nursing a deep grudge against the Meng family, took the opportunity to persuade Hu Hai. He proposed forging an imperial decree in the emperor's name to execute Fusu and appoint Hu Hai as the heir. Driven by ambition, Hu Hai agreed to the sinister plan. Zhao Gao said, "Unless we plot with the chancellor, I fear we cannot succeed." He then visited Chancellor Li Si and said, "The letter given by the emperor to his eldest son, along with the seals and tokens, are all in Hu Hai's possession." Zhao Gao looked at Li Si and said, "The decision of who becomes the heir depends solely on your word and mine. What is your intention?" Li Si was shocked and rebuked him. "How dare you speak such words of national ruin? This is not a matter that subjects should ever discuss." Zhao Gao sneered, "In terms of talent, strategy, merit, lack of heir, and the level of trust the eldest son has in you, how do you compare with Meng Tian in these 5 aspects?" Li Si sighed and admitted, "I am inferior to him in all." Zhao Gao pressed further, "That being so, once Fusu ascends the throne, he will surely appoint Meng Tian as chancellor. By then, it is clear that you will never return to your village with the seal of a marquis in your possession." Zhao Gao continued his enticement. "Prince Hu Hai is compassionate and sincere. He is fit to be the successor. I hope you will deliberate carefully and decide on this." Chancellor Li Si agreed, and so they plotted together. They forged a decree supposedly from the first emperor, appointing Hu Hai as the heir. Then, they drafted another mandate to be sent to Fusu, rebuking him severely for his inability to expand the territory or achieve military merit while causing heavy losses among the troops. The letter further accused him, "Instead, you have repeatedly submitted memorials slandering the court. Day and night you harbor resentment, dissatisfied that you have not been recalled as heir. General Meng Tian has failed to correct your errors and has instead shared in your schemes. You are both ordered to commit suicide, and the military command is to be handed to Vice General Wang Li." Fusu tremblingly opened the cold imperial decree. After reading it, tears streamed down his face. In despair, he entered his private chambers, intending to take his own life. General Meng Tian urgently advised, "His Majesty is away and has not appointed a successor. He entrusted me with 30,000 troops to guard the border and you as the supervisor. This is a monumental national responsibility. Now, just because one messenger has arrived, you seek to die immediately. How can you be sure this is not a deception? It would not be too late to die after we have verified the order." The messenger urged him repeatedly and forcefully. Fusu said sadly to Meng Tian, "If a father commands his son to die, what is there to ask?" He then committed suicide immediately. General Meng Tian refused to die, suspecting foul play. The messenger handed him over to the judicial officers and imprisoned him in Yangzhou. The conspirators replaced the command with an aide of Li Si to oversee the army. The messenger returned to report. Upon hearing of Fusu's death, Hu Hai initially intended to release Meng Tian. Coincidentally, Meng Yi returned after praying to the gods of the mountains and rivers for the first emperor. Zhao Gao sinisterly said to Hu Hai, "The late emperor wanted to appoint you for a long time, but Meng Yi repeatedly advised against it. It's better to execute him." So Meng Yi was imprisoned in Dai. Hu Hai's entourage traveled from Jingxing to Jiuyuan. It was high summer, and the late emperor's corpse in the carriage began to smell. Zhao Gao ordered officials to load a pickle of stinking salted fish onto the carts to mask the odor of decay. The entourage returned to Xianying via the straight road and formally announced the emperor's passing. Prince Hu Hai then ascended the throne. In the 9th month, the first emperor was buried at Mount Li. The tomb was sealed deep at the level of the 3 subterranean springs. It was filled with rare artifacts and precious treasures relocated there. Craftsmen were ordered to install mechanical crossbows. If anyone approached or attempted to enter, the devices would automatically fire upon them. Mercury was used to simulate the rivers, the Yangtze, the Yellow River, and the Great Seas, kept flowing by mechanical means. Above was a representation of the heavens, below, a map of the earth. All concubines in the late emperor's palace who had no children were ordered to commit suicide to follow him in death. After the burial was complete, someone suggested that the craftsmen who built the mechanical traps and hid the treasures knew all the secrets, and those secrets would surely be leaked if they left. When the grand task was finished, the gates were closed, trapping all the craftsmen inside the tomb. Qin Ershi wanted to execute the main brothers. Zizhi, the son of the emperor's brother, advised him. King Qian of Shao killed Li Mu and employed Yan Zhu, and King Jian of Qi killed his loyal ministers to employ Housheng. Both ultimately lost their kingdoms. The main clan are prominent ministers and strategists of Qin, yet your majesty wishes to discard them all at once. Executing loyal ministers and promoting those without integrity will cause the ministers to distrust each other internally and alienate the hearts of the warriors fighting abroad. Qin Ershi refused to listen and ultimately executed Meng Yi and General Meng Tian. Before his death, Meng Tian lamented, "From my ancestors down to my generation, we have accumulated merit and kept faith with Qin for 3 generations. Now I command over 300,000 troops. Though I am a prisoner, my power is sufficient to rebel. Yet I choose to die for my principles because I dare not disgrace the teachings of my ancestors or forget the kindness of the late emperor." He then swallowed poison and committed suicide. Yang Xiong wrote in the Feiyan. Someone asked, "Since Meng Tian was so loyal yet still executed, what is the value of loyalty? Is it still worth pursuing?" Yang Xiong replied, "He cut through mountains and filled valleys to build the wall from Lintao to the Liao River, exhausting the people's strength and leaving countless corpses. While he followed orders, his actions lacked benevolence, thus, his loyalty is not worthy of praise." The chronicler Sima Guan commented, "While the first emperor was poisoning the world with his tyranny, Meng Tian acted as his instrument. Thus, his lack of benevolence is evident." However, Meng Tian understood the integrity and duty of a subject. Although executed without guilt, he remained loyal unto death without wavering. This is indeed worthy of praise. In the first year of Emperor Qin Ershi's reign, the year of Renqin, 209 BC, during the 10th month of winter, on the day of Wuyin, a general amnesty was declared. In the spring, Ershi toured the eastern commanderies and counties, accompanied by Li Si. They reached Mount Jieshi and traveled south along the coast to Mount Kuaiji. He inscribed the names of the attending ministers on all the stone monuments previously erected by the first emperor to illustrate the late emperor's great achievements and immense virtue before returning. In the summer, the 4th month, Qin Ershi reached Xianying and said to Shao Gao, "Human life in this world is as fleeting as 6 stallions galloping past a narrow crevice. I have already come to rule the world. I wish to satisfy all that my senses desire and exhaust all the pleasures of my heart to spend the rest of my days. Is this possible? Let me explain. Regarding the conspiracy at Shikyu, the princes and the high officials are all suspicious of it. Furthermore, the princes are all your elder brothers, and the ministers are those appointed by the late emperor. Now that your majesty has just ascended the throne, their minds are dissatisfied and they are all disobedient. I fear they will spark a rebellion. I am trembling with fear, worrying that we might not reach a safe end. How can your majesty find the leisure for such pleasure?" Ershi asked, "What can be done about this?" Zhao Gao said, "Your majesty should impose strict laws and harsh punishments, decreeing that the guilty involve others in collective responsibility, and exterminate the high officials and the imperial clan. Then, recruit and promote the common people who remain, make the poor wealthy and the lowly noble. Exterminate all the old ministers of the late emperor and replace them with those whom your majesty trusts. This way, the secret gratitude will belong to your majesty, the harms will be removed, and treacherous plots will be blocked. None of the ministers will fail to be touched by your grace and receive your profound benevolence. Then your majesty can sleep soundly and indulge your desires in pleasure. No plan is better than this." Ershi agreed with him. He then changed the laws, striving to make them even more harsh and severe. Whenever high officials or princes were accused of crimes, they were handed over to Shao Gao to be interrogated and punished. Consequently, 12 princes were executed in the marketplace of Xianying, and 10 princesses were dismembered in Du. Their property was confiscated by the state, and those who were implicated and arrested were beyond counting. Prince Jianglu and his 2 brothers were imprisoned in the inner palace, and the deliberation of their crimes was delayed until the end. Ershi sent a messenger to tell Jianglu, "The prince is not acting as a proper subject. Your crime deserves death. The officials are now applying the law. Jianglu replied, in the rituals of the court, I have never dared to disobey the guidance of the masters of ceremonies. In my position at the court in temples, I have never dared to lose my composure. When receiving orders and responding, I have never dared to use improper words. Why am I called disloyal? I wish to hear my crime before I die. The messenger said, I am not permitted to join in the planning. I am merely carrying out my duties according to the decree. Jianglu then looked up to the heavens and cried out heaven 3 times, saying, I am innocent. The 3 brothers all shed tears and drew their swords to commit suicide. The imperial clan was struck with terror. Prince Gao wanted to flee, but he feared his entire clan would be executed because of him, so he submitted a memorial, saying, When the late emperor was well, I was granted meals upon entering and carriages upon departing. I was given robes from the imperial wardrobe and precious horses from the central stables. I ought to have followed him in death but could not, thus, as a son I am unfilial, and as a subject I am disloyal. One who is unfilial and disloyal has no name to stand in this world. I request to follow in death and wish to be buried at the foot of Mount Li. May your majesty show compassion. When the memorial was submitted, Ershi was greatly pleased. He summoned Shao Gao, showed it to him, and said, Can this be called urgent? Shao Gao said, When subjects are constantly worrying about their own deaths, how could they have time to plot a rebellion? Ershi approved the request and granted 100,000 coins for the funeral. He then resumed the construction of the Yipeng Palace. He mobilized 50,000 elite warriors to guard Xianying and ordered them to be trained in archery. The hunting dogs, horses, and exotic animals that needed to be fed were so numerous that the supplies were deemed insufficient. Orders were sent to the commanderies and counties to transport beans, grain, fodder, and straw to the capital. The laborers were all ordered to bring their own rations. Furthermore, those within a 300 li radius of Xianying were forbidden from eating the grain there, as it was reserved for the imperial animals. In the autumn, the 7th month, Cheng Sheng of Yangcheng and Wu Guang of Yangxiao raised an army in Qi. At that time, 900 commoners were conscripted to garrison Yuyang and were stationed at the Zexiang. Cheng Sheng and Wu Guang both served as unit leaders. It so happened that heavy rain fell and the roads became impassable. It was calculated that they had already missed the deadline. According to the law, missing the deadline was punishable by death. Cheng Sheng and Wu Guang took advantage of the world's sorrow and resentment, killed the commanding officers, and summoned their subordinates, saying, You are all to be executed for missing the deadline, and even if we were not executed and went to garrison the border, 6 or 7 out of 10 of us would surely die anyway. Besides, if a brave man does not die, it's one thing, but if he must die, he should do so to achieve great fame. Are kings, marquises, generals, and chancellors born to their titles? The crowd all followed him. They then falsely claimed to be under Prince Fusu and Xiang Yan, built an altar to swear an oath, and called their movement the Great Chu. Cheng Sheng declared himself general, and Wu Guang became the commandant. They attacked the Zexiang and captured it. They gathered more troops and attacked Qi, which subsequently fell. He then ordered Guo Ying of Fuli to lead troops to advance east of Qi, attacking Xi, Zhang, Ku, She, and Qiao, all of which were captured. While marching, they recruited more soldiers. By the time they reached Chen, they had 600 or 700 chariots, over 1,000 cavalry, and tens of thousands of infantry. They attacked Chen. The governor and commandant were both absent. Only the assistant governor fought them at the gatehouse but was defeated and killed. Cheng Sheng then entered and occupied Chen. In the beginning, 2 men from Dalian, Zhang Yi and Cheng Yu, shared such a profound bond that they became neck-severing friends, meaning they were prepared to die for one another. When Qin conquered Wei, it learned that these 2 were renowned scholars of the fallen state and offered a heavy bounty for their capture. Zhang Yi and Cheng Yu subsequently changed their names and fled together to Chen County, where they served as neighborhood gatekeepers to earn a living. A minor local official once flogged Cheng Yu for a perceived fault. Cheng Yu wanted to spring up and resist, but Zhang Yi stepped on his foot to signal him to endure the lashing. After the official left, Zhang Yi led Cheng Yu under a mulberry tree and rebuked him. What did we agree upon at the start? Are you going to risk your life against a petty official over such a minor humiliation? Cheng Yu apologized. Once Chen Shi entered the city of Chen, Zhang Yi and Cheng Yu went to his gate to request an audience. Chen Shi had long heard of their virtue and was greatly delighted. The local heroes and elders of Cheng requested that Chen Shi be installed as the king of Chu. He consulted Zhang Yi and Cheng Yu regarding this matter. Yi and Yu replied, Qin is unprincipled. It destroyed the states of others and tyrannized the people. General, you have devised a plan at the risk of 10,000 deaths to rid the world of cruelty. Now that you have just arrived in Chen, to declare yourself king would show the world your selfishness. We hope you will refrain from taking the title and instead quickly lead your troops westward. Dispatch men to install the descendants of the 6 states, thereby establishing allies for yourself and increasing enemies for Qin. When enemies are numerous, their strength is divided. When allies are many, our army is strong. In this way, there will be no opposing armies in the fields and no defending cities in the counties. You can destroy the brutal Qin, occupy Xianying, and command the feudal lords. If the fallen lords are restored because of you, they will be won over by your virtue, and thus the imperial cause will be accomplished. If you declare yourself king only in Chen now, we fear the world will grow lax in supporting you. Cheng Shi did not listen. He subsequently established himself as king, with the title Zhang Chu, expanding Chu. At that time, all the commanderies and counties suffered under Qin law and vied to kill their senior officials in order to respond to Cheng Shi. An official messenger came from the east and reported the news of the rebellion. The second emperor grew angry and handed him over to the judicial officers. Later, other messengers arrived. When the emperor questioned them, they replied, they are but a band of thieves, engaging in petty theft. The governors and commandants are currently pursuing and capturing them. They have now all been caught, so there is no need for worry. The emperor was pleased. The king of Cheng appointed Wu Shu as the acting king to supervise the various generals in their westward attack on Xinyang. Zhang Yi and Cheng Yu again advised the king of Chen, requesting a surprise force to capture the lands of Shao to the north. Thereupon, the king of Cheng appointed Wu Chen, an old acquaintance from Chen, as general, and Shao Cao as army protector. He appointed Zhang Yi and Cheng Yu as left and right colonels, gave them 3,000 troops, and sent them to capture Shao. The king of Chen also ordered Deng Zong of Ruyin to capture Jiujiang commandery. At that time, countless groups of Chu soldiers numbering in the thousands gathered together. Gu Ying reached Dongjian and installed Xiang Chang as the king of Chu. When he learned that the king of Chen had already been established, he killed Xiang Chang and returned to report. The king of Chen executed Gu Ying. The king of Chen ordered Shou Shi of Wei to capture the lands of Wei to the north. He appointed Kai Sihai, the lord of Feng and a man of Shangsai, as the supreme pillar of state. The king of Chen heard that Shou Wen was a virtuous man of Chen who was skilled in military affairs. He gave him the seal of a general and sent him westward to attack Qin. Wu Chen and the others crossed the river at Beima and, upon reaching various counties, persuaded the local heroes, who all responded to them. They gathered soldiers as they went, obtaining tens of thousands of men. They titled Wu Chen as Lord Wuxin and captured over 10 cities in Shao. The remaining cities held their defenses. Thereupon, he led his troops northeast to attack Fanyang. Kuai Che of Fanyang advised Lord Wuxin, you insist on winning battles before capturing land and conquering in assault before taking cities. I humbly believe this is a mistake. If you truly listen to my plan, you can make cities surrender without attacking, capture lands without fighting, and settle 1,000 li of territory simply by issuing a proclamation. Is this agreeable? Lord Wuxin asked, what do you mean? Che replied, the magistrate of Fanyang, Master Su, is a man who fears death and is greedy. He actually wishes to be the first to surrender to you. If you treat him as an official appointed by Qin and execute him as you did with the previous 10 cities, then all the frontier cities will become like walls of gold and moats of boiling water, making them impossible to capture. If you grant me a marquis seal to confer upon the magistrate of Fanyang, and let him ride in a carriage with red wheels and ornate hooves to race across the countryside of Yan and Shao, then the cities of Yan and Shao will surrender without a fight. Lord Wuxin said, "Excellent." He sent 100 carriages, 200 cavalry, and a marquis seal to welcome Master Su. Upon hearing of this, over 30 cities in Yan and Shao surrendered without a fight. After King Chen dispatched Shou Wen, he began to underestimate the Qin Empire due to its political turmoil. Consequently, he stopped preparing his defenses, letting his guard down completely under a veil of blind optimism. The learned scholar Kung Fu advised him, saying, "I have heard from the art of war that one should not rely on the enemy not attacking, but rather rely on having a defense that is unassailable and as solid as a rock." Kung Fu continued, "Now, your Majesty relies on the enemy's inaction rather than your own strength. Should you fall and be unable to rise again, regret will come too late." But Chengsheng dismissively replied, "As for my military affairs, you need not trouble yourself, old scholar." As Shou Wen marched, he gathered more troops, and by the time he reached Hangou Pass, he commanded 1,000 chariots and hundreds of thousands of spirited soldiers. This massive surge advanced to the Xi River area, near the Qin capital, where they set up camp with overwhelming momentum. Emperor Airshur, who had been indulging in music and dance, was terrified to hear the rebels were at his doorstep. He hurriedly summoned his officials and asked in a panic, "What can be done? Someone, suggest a way out." Zhang Han, the chamberlain for the palace revenues, stood up calmly and analyzed the situation. "The rebels have already arrived and are numerous and strong. If we attempt to mobilize troops from the nearby counties now, it will be far too late. There are numerous convicts at Mountley. I request that they be pardoned and provided with weapons to strike at the invaders." Emperor Airshur issued a general amnesty and sent Zhang Han to free the convicts at Mountley and the descendants of slaves. Zhang Han mobilized them all to strike the Chu army, dealing them a devastating defeat and forcing Shou Wen to flee. Upon reaching Hangdang, Zhang Yi and Cheng Yu learned of Shou Wen's retreat. They also heard that many generals returning from successful campaigns were being executed by King Chen due to slander. Consequently, they persuaded Lord Wuxin to declare himself king of Shao. In the 8th month, Lord Wuxin established himself as the king of Shao. He appointed Cheng Yu as the Grand General, Zhang Yi as the Right Chancellor, and Shao Sao as the Left Chancellor. He then sent an envoy to inform King Chen. King Cheng was infuriated upon hearing of Wu Chen's self-proclamation. He wished to exterminate the entire clans of Lord Wuxin and the others and dispatch troops to attack Shao. Chancellor Kai Xi advised, to execute the families of Lord Wuxin while Qin is not yet destroyed is to create another enemy as formidable as Qin itself. It would be better to offer congratulations and order them to lead their troops westward to attack Qin immediately. King Cheng agreed and followed the plan. He moved the families of Wu Chen and the others to the palace for confinement, but formally titled Zhang Yi's son, Zhang Ao, as the Lord of Chengdu. He then sent an envoy to congratulate Shao and commanded Wu Chen to hurry his troops westward to enter the pass. Zhang Yi and Cheng Yu advised the king of Shao, "Your kingship in Shao was never King Chen's true intention. He only congratulated you as a calculated move. Once Chu destroys Qin, they will surely turn their weapons against Shao. We hope your majesty will not send troops westward. Instead, advance north to capture Yan and Dai, and south to reclaim the regions north of the river, so as to expand your own domain." They analyzed, with Zhou holding the Yellow River to the south and possessing Yan and Dai to the north, even if Chu defeats Qin, they will not dare to dominate us. Should they fail to defeat Qin, they will rely on us even more. Zhou can take advantage of the exhaustion of both Qin and Chu to achieve dominance over the world. The king of Shao agreed. He refrained from sending troops west and instead dispatched Han Guan to capture Yan, Li Liang to take Changshan, and Wang Yan to seize Shangdang. In the 9th month, Lu Bang of Pei raised an army in Pei, Xiang Liang of Xiexiang rose in Wu, and Tian Dan of Di initiated an uprising in the land of Qi. Lu Bang, styled Ji, possessed a high bridge on his nose and a majestic, dragon-like countenance. Miraculously, he had 72 black moles on his left thigh. He was kind to others and enjoyed being generous, possessing an exceptionally broad and open mind. Always maintaining a grand demeanor, he showed no interest in the mundane agricultural labor performed by his family. Initially, he served as the neighborhood head of Zizhi. Master Liu Shangfu, who was skilled in physiognomy, was astonished by Lu Bang's appearance and, sensing his greatness, gave him his daughter in marriage. Shortly after, while serving as neighborhood head, he was tasked by the county to escort convicts to Mountley. However, many of the convicts escaped along the way. He calculated that by the time he arrived, all the convicts would have escaped. Reaching the marshes west of Feng, he stopped to drink. At night, he unshackled the convicts and said, "You all may go. I, too, shall depart from here and disappear." Among the convicts, over 10 brave men were willing to follow him. Influenced by one, Lu Bang trekked through the marshes at night. A large snake blocked his path, but he drew his sword and slashed it in two. An old woman was heard weeping, saying, "My son was the son of the White Emperor, transformed into a snake to block the road, but now the son of the Red Emperor has killed him." Then she suddenly vanished. Lu Bang fled and hid among the crags and marshes of the Meng and Dan mountains. Strange phenomena frequently occurred where he stayed. When the youths of Pei heard of this, many wished to join him. When news of Chengxi's uprising spread, the magistrate of Pei wished to lead the district to respond in support. The local officials Shao He and Chao Ken said, "You are an official of Qin. If you wish to betray the state and lead the youths of Pei into rebellion, we fear they will not follow you. We suggest you summon those outlaws hiding in the wilderness. You can obtain several hundred such men. By using them to intimidate the masses, everyone will be forced to obey." Thereupon, the magistrate sent Fan Kuai to summon Lu Bang. By then, Lu Bang's followers numbered several hundred. The magistrate regretted his decision, fearing they would turn against him. He closed the gates to defend the city and plotted to execute Shao He and Chao Ken. Fearing for their lives, Shao He and Chao Ken climbed over the city walls to seek refuge with Lu Bang. Lu Bang then wrote a letter on silk and shot it into the city with an arrow, addressing the elders of Pei to explain the risks and rewards of their situation. The elders, moved by his words, led the youths to kill the magistrate together. They opened the gates to welcome Lu Bang and installed him as the Lord of Pei. Shao He, Chao Ken, and the others then recruited and organized the youths of Pei for him, gathering 2,000 to 3,000 men to respond to the general uprising of the feudal lords. Xiang Yang was the son of the Chu general Xiang Yan. Having once killed someone, he and his nephew Xiang Ji, Xiang Yu, fled to the Wu region to escape their enemies. The talents and strategies of the worthy scholars and officials in Wu were all inferior to Xiang Lian's. In his youth, Xiang Yu studied calligraphy but failed to master it and gave up. He then studied swordsmanship but also failed to master it. Xiang Yang grew angry with him. Xiang Yu said, "Calligraphy is only sufficient for recording one's name. Swordsmanship only allows one to face a single opponent and is not worth learning. I want to learn how to defeat 10,000 men." Thereupon Xiang Liang taught Xiang Yu the art of war, and Xiang Yu was greatly pleased. However, once he had grasped the general essence of it, he again refused to complete his studies. Xiang Yu was over 8 feet tall and strong enough to lift a bronze cauldron. Both his talent and his capacity were far beyond those of ordinary men. In Tong, the governor of Kuaiji, heard that Chengxi had risen in rebellion and wished to mobilize his own troops in response. He intended to put Xiang Liang and Huan Chu in command. At that time, Huan Chu was a fugitive hiding in the marshes. Xiang Liang said, "Huan Chu is a fugitive, and no one knows his whereabouts except for my nephew Ji, Xiang Yu." Xiang Liang then went out and instructed Xiang Yu to wait outside with his sword. He re-entered and sat with the governor, saying, "Please summon Ji so that he may receive orders to bring back Huan Chu." The governor said, "Very well." Xiang Liang summoned Ji inside. After a brief moment, Xiang Liang signaled to Ji with his eyes and said, "It is time." Thereupon Ji drew his sword and decapitated the governor. Xiang Liang took the governor's head and wore his official seals and ribbons. The governor's retainers were struck with immense terror, and the whole fell into chaos. Ji personally struck and killed scores of men, until everyone in the office was cowed into submission, with none daring to stand up. Xiangliang then summoned the influential officials he knew, informing them of the reasons for starting this grand cause, and subsequently raised the troops of Wu. He sent men to take control of the subordinate counties and obtained 8,000 elite troops. Xiangliang became the governor of Kuaiji, and Ji was appointed as a lieutenant general, patrolling the lower counties. Ji was 24 years old at the time. Tiandan was a member of the former royal family of Qi. His younger cousin Rong and Rong's younger brother Heng were both powerful and vigorous. Their clan was strong, and they were capable of winning people's hearts. The Wei general Zhou Shi captured territory and reached Di, where the town was being defended. Tiandan feigned binding his servant and, accompanied by several youths, went to the court, requesting an audience to execute the servant. Upon seeing the magistrate of Di, he struck and killed him, then summoned the influential officials and youths, saying, "The feudal lords have all rebelled against Qin and established themselves. Qi has been an established state since antiquity. I, then of the Tian clan, should be king." He then established himself as the king of Qi and dispatched troops to attack Zhou Shi. Zhou Shi's army retreated. Tiandan led his troops eastward to capture and pacify the lands of Qi. Hongguan led troops north to capture Yan, and the local heroes of Yan wished to collectively establish Guan as the king of Yan. Guan said, "My mother is in Shao, it cannot be done." The people of Yan said, "Shao is currently worried about Qin to the west and Chu to the south. Their strength is insufficient to stop us. Furthermore, given the strength of Chu, even they dare not harm the families of the king of Shao's generals and ministers. How would Shao alone dare to harm the general's family?" Hongguang then established himself as the king of Yan. After a few months, Shao indeed returned the king of Yan's mother and family to him. The king of Shao, along with Rong Yi and Cheng Yu, was capturing land on the Yan border when the king went out secretly and was captured by the Yan army. Yan imprisoned him, wishing to demand a cession of territory. Zhao sent messengers to request his release, but Yan executed them one after another. Then, a lowly groom from the Shao army ran to the Yan camp, met with the Yan general, and said, "Do you know what Zong Yi and Cheng Yu desire?" The Yan general replied, "They simply want their king back." The Shao groom laughed and said, "You clearly do not understand what these two men truly desire." Wu Chen, Zhang Yi, and Cheng Yu captured dozens of cities in Shao with nothing more than their riding crops. These men all desire to face south and rule as kings. Do you think they really want to remain generals and ministers forever? It is only because the situation has just stabilized that they have not yet dared to divide Shao into 3 parts to each become kings. Thus, they initially established Wu Chen as king based on seniority to maintain the people's loyalty. Now that you have captured the king of Shao, these two men are nominally asking for his release, but in reality, they want Yan to kill him. Once the king is dead, these two can naturally divide Shao and establish themselves. Think about it, even a single Shao is more than a match for Yan. How much more so when two capable kings collaborate, using the pretext of avenging the murder of their former king to attack you? Destroying Yan would be as easy as turning over one's hand. The Yan general promptly released the king of Shao. The clever groom personally drove the carriage for the king, and they returned to the Zhao camp in triumph. The Wei general Zhou Shi returned from Di and arrived in the lands of Wei. He intended to establish the former Wei prince, the lord of Ningling named Jiu, as the king. At that time, Wei Jiu was in Chun and could not go to Wei. Since the lands of Wei had been pacified, the various lords all wished to establish the meritorious Zhou Shi as the king of Wei. Zhou Shi said, "When the world is in chaos, true loyalists become evident. Now that the world collectively rebels against Qin, it is only right and just to establish a descendant of the king of Wei." Although the lords insisted on establishing him, Zhou Shi resolutely declined to the end. He traveled between Chun and Wei multiple times to bring Wei Jiu back. Finally moved by his sincerity, King Cheng allowed Jiu to depart. Wei Jiu was established as the king of Wei, and Zhou Shi became his chancellor. That year, Qin heir Shi deposed Lord Jiao of Wei and reduced him to a commoner, ending the state of Wei's sacrifices. 其恶逢燕茂，晋玄义直徐，凡19年。始皇帝下20年， 甲戌，公元前227年，荆轲至咸阳，因王宠臣蒙嘉卑赐以求见，王大喜，朝服，设酒宾而见之。荆轲奉图以进于王，图穷而匕首见，因把王袖而震之，未至身，王惊起，袖绝。荆轲逐王，王还柱而走。群臣皆恶，足起不义，尽失其度。而秦法，群臣侍殿上者不得操尺寸之兵，左右以手共搏之，且曰：王复见。复见，王遂把以击荆轲，断其左骨。荆轲废，乃引匕首至王，中同柱。自知事不救，骂曰：是所以不成者，以欲生节之，必得约契以报太子也。遂提解荆轲以训。王于是大怒，亦发兵议赵，救王翦以伐燕，与燕师，待时战于易水之西，大破之。始皇帝下21年乙亥，公元前226年冬10月，王翦拔济，燕王及太子率其精兵东保辽东，李信即追之。代王加疑燕王书，令杀太子丹以献。丹溺盐水中，燕王使时斩丹，欲以献王，王复进兵。冬至，王奔伐楚，取师于城。王问于将军李信曰：吾欲取京，于将军度用几何人而足？李信曰：不过用20万。王以问王翦，王翦曰：非60万人不可。王曰：王将军老矣，何妾也？遂使李信、蒙恬将20万人伐楚。王翦因谢病归平阳。始皇帝下22年丙子，公元前225年，王奔伐魏，引河沟以灌大梁。3月，城坏，魏王贾降，杀之，遂灭魏。王使人谓安陵君曰：寡人欲以500里地邑安陵。安陵君曰：大王嘉惠，以大易小，甚幸。虽然，臣受地于魏之先王，愿中守之，弗敢易。王义而许之。李信攻平舆，蒙恬攻寝，大破楚军。信又攻燕郢，破之，于是引兵而西，与蒙恬会城父，楚人因随之，3日3夜不顿射，大败李信，入两壁，杀7都尉。李信奔还，王闻之，大怒，自至平阳谢王翦曰：寡人不用将军谋，李信国辱秦军。将军虽病，独忍弃寡人乎？王翦谢病不能降。王曰：已，勿复言。王翦曰：必不得已用臣，非60万人不可。王曰：未听将军计耳。于是王翦将60万人伐楚。王送至坝上，王翦请美田宅甚重。王曰：将军行矣，何忧贫乎？王翦曰：为大王将，有功，终不得封侯，故及大王之相臣，以请田宅为子孙业耳。王大笑。王翦既行，至官，使函请善田者5倍。或曰：将军之期待，亦已甚矣。王翦曰：不然。王屈中而不信人，今空国中之甲士而专委于我，我不多请田宅为子孙业以自坚，故令王坐而疑我矣。始皇帝下23年丁丑，公元前224年，王翦取陈以南至平舆。楚人闻王翦义军而来，乃西国中兵以御之。王翦坚壁不与战，楚人数挑战，终不出。王翦日修饰洗沐，而善饮食，抚循之，亲与士卒。同时，久之，王翦使人问：军中细乎？对曰：方头时，超惧。王翦曰：可用矣。楚既不得战，乃引而东。王翦追之，令壮士击，大破楚师，至其南，杀其将军项燕，楚师遂败走。王翦因乘胜略定城邑。始皇帝下24年戊寅，公元前223年，王翦、蒙武卢楚王复楚，以其地至楚郡。始皇帝下25年己卯，公元前222年，大兴兵，使王奔攻辽东，虏燕王喜。陈光曰：燕丹不胜一朝之愤，以犯虎狼之秦，轻虑浅谋，挑怨宿祸，使赵公之妙不似乎诸，罪孰大焉？而论者或谓之贤，岂不过哉？夫为国家者，任官以才，立政以礼，怀民以仁，交邻以信。是以官得其人，政得其节，百姓怀其德，似邻亲其义。夫如是，则国家安如磐石，炽如焰火。触之者遂，犯之者骄，虽有强暴之国，尚何足畏哉？但是此不为，故以万乘之国。绝匹夫之怒，惩盗贼之谋，公挥深路，社稷为虚，不亦悲哉？夫其西行，匍匐，非攻也；复言，重诺，非信也；迷津，散欲，非惠也；稳守，决复，非勇也。要知谋不远而动不义，其处白公胜之流乎？ 荆轲怀其豢养之思，不顾其族，欲以齿八匕首强燕而弱秦，不亦于乎？故杨子论之，以要离为猪毛之谜，聂政为壮士之谜，荆轲为刺客之谜，皆不可谓之意。又曰：荆轲君子道诛，善哉！王奔攻代，鲁代王家。王翦西定荆江南地，将百越之军，智慧激郡。5月，天下大破。初，齐君王后贤是秦锦与诸侯信，齐邑东边海上。秦日夜攻三晋，燕、楚5国各自救，以故齐王建立40余年不受兵。及君王后且死，介王谏曰：群臣之可用者某。王曰：请书之。君王后曰：善。王取笔读受言。君王后曰：老父已忘矣。君王后死，后圣象齐多受秦监禁，宾客入秦，秦又多与晋，客皆为反间，劝王朝秦，不修攻战之备，不助5国攻秦，秦以故得灭5国。齐王将入朝，雍门司马前曰：所为立王者，为社稷也，为王也。王曰：为社稷。司马曰：为社稷立王，王何以去社稷而入秦？齐王还车而返。即莫大夫闻之，见齐王曰：其地方4000里，带甲数百万，夫三晋大夫皆不便秦，而在阿卷之间者百数。王收尔与之100万人之众，使收三晋之故地及邻近之关，可以入矣。燕郢大夫不欲为秦，而在城南下者百数。王收尔与之100万之师，使收楚故地及5关，可以入矣。如此，则齐威可立，秦国可亡，岂特保其国家而已哉？齐王不听。始皇帝下26年庚辰，公元前221年，王奔自燕南攻齐，卒入临淄，民莫敢革者。秦使人诱齐王，约封以500里之地。齐王遂降，秦迁之贡，处之松柏之间，饿而死。齐人怨王建不早与诸侯合纵，听奸人宾客以亡齐国，各之曰：松耶，伯耶，助见贡者克也。即见用克之不降也。陈光曰：从衡之说虽反复百端，然大要合纵者6国之利也。西先王见万国，亲诸侯，使之朝聘以相交，享宴以相悦，会盟以相结者，无他，欲其同心戮力以保国家也。向使6国能以信义相亲，则秦虽强暴，安得而亡之哉？夫三晋者，齐、楚之藩蔽；齐、楚者，三晋之根底，形势相资，表里相依。故以三晋而攻齐、楚，自绝其根底也；以齐、楚而攻三晋，自撤其藩蔽也。安有撤其藩蔽以媚道？曰道将爱我而不攻，岂不备哉？王初并天下，自以为德兼三皇，攻过5帝，乃更号曰皇帝，命为治，令为赵，自称曰朕，追尊庄襄王为太上皇。至曰：死而以行为事，则是子义父，臣义君也，甚无畏。自今以来，除世法，朕为始皇帝，后世以计数。2世、3世至于万世，传之无穷。初，齐威宣之时，邹衍论著中15德之运，即始皇并天下，齐人奏之。始皇采用其说，以为周得火德，秦代周从所不胜，为水德。是改年，朝贺皆自10月朔，衣服、经毛、节旗皆上黑，数以6为纪。丞相绾等言：燕、齐经地远，不为治王，无以镇之，请立诸子。始皇下其意。廷尉司曰：周闻吾所封子弟同姓甚重，然后属疏远，相公积如仇仇，周天子弗能禁止。今海内赖陛下神灵一统，皆为郡县，诸子功臣以功赋税重赏赐之，甚足益治，天下无异议，则安宁之术也。治诸侯不变。始皇曰：天下共苦战斗不休，已有后王。赖宗庙，天下初定，又复立国，是戍兵也，而求其宁息，岂不难哉？廷尉议事，分天下为36郡，郡之首，魏、监。收天下兵据咸阳，萧以为中渠，今人12，众各千刃，至宫廷中。议法度，衡、石、丈氏，徙天下豪杰于咸阳12万户。诸庙及章台、上林皆在渭南。每破诸侯，写放其宫室，坐之咸阳北板上，南临渭，自雍门以东至京、渭、殿屋、复道、周阁相主，所得诸侯美人，钟鼓以充入之。始皇帝下27年辛巳，公元前220年，始皇巡陇西北地，至鸡头山，过回中燕。坐信宫渭南，以更命曰吉庙。 自极妙道通骊山，作甘泉前殿，祝永道自咸阳属之，至持道于天下。始皇帝下28年壬午，公元前219年，始皇东行郡县上邹一山，历时宋公业。于是召集鲁儒生70人，至泰山下，议封禅。诸儒或曰：古者封禅为仆车，扼商山之土石、草木，扫地而祭，习用租阶，一个乖异。始皇以其难施用，由此处儒生。而遂出车道，上自泰山阳至巅，历时宋德，从阴道下单于梁父，其里颇采太柱之祀，拥上帝所用，而封藏皆密之，是不得而祭也。于是始皇遂东游海上，行礼慈名山、大川及8神。始皇南登琅琊，大乐之，留3月，作琅琊台，历时宋德，名德义。初，燕人宋无忌献门子高之徒，称有仙道，行解消化之术，焉其愚怪之事，皆争传习之。自其威王、宣王、燕昭王皆信其言，使人入海求蓬莱、方丈、瀛洲，云此3神山在渤海中，去人不远。患且至，则风引传去。常有志者，诸仙人及不死之药，皆在焉。及始皇至海上，诸方士其人徐氏等征上书言之，请得斋戒与童男女求之。于是遣徐氏发童男女数千人入海求之，传交海中，皆以封解，曰：未能至，望见之焉。始皇还，过彭城，斋戒祷辞，欲出舟顶泗水，使千人每水求之，弗得。乃西南渡淮水，至衡山、南郡，扶将至香山祠，逢大风，己不能渡。上问博士曰：湘君何神？对曰：闻之，尧女，舜之妻，葬此。始皇大怒，使行徒3000人，皆伐香山树者其山。遂自南郡游观武归。初，韩人张良，其父足以上武士向韩，及韩王梁散千金之产，欲为韩报仇。始皇帝下29年癸未，公元前218年，始皇东游，至阳武博浪沙中，张良令力士操铁锤狙击始皇，误中覆车。始皇惊，求福德，令天下大所10日。始皇遂登之服，刻石悬之狼邪，道上挡入。始皇帝下31年乙酉，公元前216年，是前手刺石田。始皇帝下32年丙戌，公元前215年，始皇之节时，使燕人卢生求献门，刻结石门，坏城郭，决通堤方。始皇巡北边，从上郡入，卢生使入海环，因奏路图书曰：亡秦者胡也。始皇乃遣将军蒙恬发兵30万人，北伐匈奴。始皇帝下33年丁亥，公元前214年，发诸长都王人赘婿假人为兵，掠取南越路梁地，至桂林、南海、象郡，以折洗民50万人戍五岭，与越杂处。蒙恬斥逐匈奴，收河南地为44县，筑长城，因地形用至险塞，起临洮至辽东，延冒万余里。于是渡河，据阳山，威夷而北。报失于外10余年。蒙恬长居上郡，统治之，威震匈奴。始皇帝下34年戊子，公元前213年，折至玉立不直，及复欲故，师者筑长城，急处南越地。丞相李斯上书曰：一时诸侯并争，后招游学。今天下已定，法令初一，百姓当家则立农工，是则学习法令。今诸生不失今而学古，以非当世，祸乱前手，相与非法教。人闻令下，则各以其学艺之，入则心非，出则象意，夸主以为名。意去以为高，率群下以造谤。如此弗进，则主事降乎上，党羽成乎下。进之变，陈情史官非秦纪皆烧之，非博士官所执，天下有藏诗书100家余者，皆以手为杂烧之。有感偶语诗书气势，以古非今者卒，力见之不举，与同罪。令下30日，不烧，情为成弹。所不去者，医药、卜筮、种树之书。若欲有学法令，以立为师。至曰：可。魏人陈余谓孔父曰：秦将灭先王之急，而此为书籍之主，其危哉？子瑜曰：吾为无用之学，知无者为有。秦非无有，吾何危哉？吾将葬之以待其求，求至，无患矣。始皇帝下35年己丑，公元前212年，使蒙恬除直道，到九原，抵云阳，堑山阴谷1800里，数年不就。始皇以为咸阳人多，先王之宫廷小， 乃营坐朝宫卫南上林院中，先坐前殿阿旁，东西500步，南北50丈，上可以坐万人，下可以建5丈旗，周持为阁道。自殿下直抵南山，表南山之巅以为阙。为复道，自阿旁渡渭，属之咸阳，以向天极阁道，绝汉抵营是也。引宫图行者70余万人，乃分作阿旁宫，或作骊山。发北山10国，协属经地财，皆至。关中济公300，关外400余。于是历时东海上渠界中，以为秦东门。因喜3万家离邑，5万家云阳，皆复不是10岁。卢生说始皇曰：方中人主实为微行，以辟恶鬼。恶鬼辟，真人治。院上所居，公无令人知，然后不死之药待可得也。始皇曰：无目真人。自谓真人，不称朕。乃令咸阳之旁200里内宫观270，复道甬道相连，围帐钟鼓，每人充之，各按属不宜洗。行所幸，有言其处者，罪死。始皇幸梁山公，从山上见丞相车骑重，伏善也。中人或告丞相，丞相后损车骑。始皇怒曰：此中人谢无语。暗问莫服，捕食在旁者，尽杀之。自事后，莫知行之所在。群臣受爵士者，悉于咸阳宫。侯生、卢生相与击议始皇，因亡去。始皇闻之，大怒曰：卢生等无尊赐。知甚后，今乃诽谤我。诸生在咸阳者，无使人连问，或为妖言以乱前首。于是御史西岸问诸生，诸生转相告引，乃自除犯禁者460余人，皆坑之咸阳，使天下知之，以成后一发折喜鞭。始皇长子扶苏谏曰：诸生皆诵法孔子，今上皆重法绳之，臣恐天下不安。始皇怒，使扶苏北监蒙恬军于上郡。始皇帝下36年庚寅，公元前21年，有陨石于东郡。或克其时曰：始皇死而地分。始后使御史逐问，莫服，尽取时旁居人诛之，凡其使。迁河北于中3万家，赐爵一级。始皇帝下37年辛卯，公元前210年冬10月癸丑，始皇出游，左丞相司从，右丞相去棘首。始皇20余子，少子胡亥最爱，请从，上许之。11月，行至云梦，望祀虞舜于九夷山。伏江夏，关界科，渡海主，过丹阳，至钱塘，临浙江。水波恶，乃西120里，从峡中渡。上会稽，济大禹，望于南海，历时宋德。还，过吴，从江成渡，并海上，北至琅琊、福，见巨鱼，射杀之。遂并海西，至平原津而病。始皇恶言死，群臣莫敢言死事。病亦甚，乃令中军府令行符喜事赵高为书赐扶苏曰：禹丧，会咸阳而葬。书已封，在赵高所，未复使者。秋7月丙寅，始皇崩于沙丘平台。丞相司卫上崩在外，恐诸公子及天下有变，乃密之不发丧，官载云粮车中，故幸患者参乘。所至上时，百官奏事如故，患者折从车中可其奏事。独胡亥、赵高及幸患者5、6人知之。初，始皇尊宠蒙氏，信任之。蒙恬人在外将，蒙毅常居中参谋议，名为忠信，故虽诸将相莫敢与之争。赵高者，生而隐功，始皇闻其强力，通于御法，举以为中车府令，使教胡亥绝狱，胡亥幸之。赵高有罪，始皇使蒙毅治之，亦当高法应死。始皇以高敏于事，赦之，复其官。赵高既雅德幸于胡亥，又怨蒙氏，乃说胡亥，请诈以始皇命诛扶苏，而立胡亥为太子。胡亥然其计。赵高曰：不与丞相谋，恐事不能成。乃见丞相司曰：上次长子书及符喜，皆在胡亥所。定太子，在君后与高之口耳。事将何如？司曰：安得亡国之言？此非人臣所当议也。高曰：君后才能，谋虑，功高，无怨，长子信之，此五者皆属与蒙恬。司曰：不及也。高曰：然则长子即位，必用蒙恬为丞相，君后终不怀通侯之印，归乡里民矣。胡亥此人笃厚，可以为嗣，愿君审计而定之。丞相司以为然，乃向羽谋，诈为受始皇诏，立胡亥为太子。 更为疏赐扶苏，数以不能辟地立功，士卒多好，反述上书，直言诽谤，日夜愿望不得罢归为太子。将军田不矫正，知其谋，皆赐死，以兵属皮将王离。扶苏发书，弃入内舍，欲自杀。蒙恬曰：陛下居外，未立太子，使臣将30万众守边，公子为监，此天下重任也。今一使者来，即自杀，安知其非诈？父请而后死，未穆也。使者数去之。扶苏谓蒙恬曰：父赐子死，尚安父请？即自杀。蒙恬不肯死，使者以属吏系诸扬州。更至李斯舍人卫护军，还报。胡亥以闻扶苏死，即御史蒙恬。会蒙意为始皇出岛山川，还至。赵高言于胡亥曰：先帝欲举贤立太子久矣，而意见以为不可，不若诛之。乃系诸待，遂从景行抵9原。会蜀温车臭，乃诏从官令车载一时暴雨以乱之。从直道至咸阳，发丧。太子胡亥袭位。9月，葬始皇于骊山，下谷3泉，其器珍怪，喜藏满之。令将作击弩，有穿进者折射之。以水银为百川、江河、大海，机相灌输。上具天文，下具地理。后宫无子者，皆令从死。葬祭以下，或言工匠为机藏，皆知之，葬重极谢。大事尽，必之墓中。20欲诛蒙恬兄弟。二师兄子应谏曰：赵王迁杀李牧而用严具，齐王见杀其故事忠臣而用后胜，足皆亡国。蒙氏秦之大臣谋士也，而陛下欲一旦弃取之。诛杀忠臣而立无节行之人，是内使群臣不相信，而外使斗士之义理也。2. 士夫听，遂杀蒙毅及内史田。田曰：自无先人及至子孙，积功信于秦3世矣。今臣将兵30余万，身虽求系，其事足以背叛。然自知必死而守义者，不敢辱先人之教，以不忘先帝也。乃吞药自杀。杨子法言曰：或问蒙田中而被诛，终悉可为也。曰：堑山、阴谷、起临洮、积辽水，力不足而失有余，终不足相也。陈光曰：秦始皇方独天下，而蒙恬为之始，恬不忍可知矣。然恬明于为人臣之义，虽无罪见诛，能守死不二，斯亦足称也。二世皇帝上元年，壬辰，公元前209年冬10月戊寅，大赦。春，二世东行郡县，李斯从，到节时，并海，南至会稽，而进克始皇所立刻时，旁助大臣从者明，以彰先帝成功圣德而还。夏4月，二世至咸阳，谓赵高曰：夫人生居士间也，辟有逞6计过绝戏也。吾既以临天下矣，欲息耳目之所好，穷心志之所乐，以终无年寿，可乎？高曰：此贤主之所能行，而昏乱主之所禁也。虽然，有所未可。臣请言之。夫沙丘之谋，诸公子及大臣皆以焉，而诸公子尽弟兄，大臣又先帝之所治也。今陛下出力，此其属意，样样皆不服，恐为变。臣战兢兢，唯恐不忠，陛下安得为此乐乎？二世曰：未知奈何？赵高曰：陛下严法而克行，令有罪者相坐，诛灭大臣及宗室，然后收举遗民，贫者富之，贱者贵之。尽除去先帝之故臣，更治陛下之所亲信者，此则应得归陛下，害除而奸谋色，群臣莫不被润泽，蒙厚德，陛下则高枕嗣之宠乐矣。既莫出于此。二世然之，乃更为法律，务以克身，大臣、诸公子有罪，折下高令居治之。于是公子12人戮死咸阳市，10公主折死于度，财物入于县官，相连逮者不可胜数。公子将驴昆第3人囚于内宫，议其罪独厚。二世使令将驴曰：公子不，臣罪当死。立制法焉。将驴曰：缺庭之礼，吾未尝敢不从宾赞也；郎庙之位，吾未尝敢失节也；受命应对，吾未尝敢誓辞也。何谓不臣？愿闻罪而死。使者曰：臣不得与谋，奉书从事。将驴乃仰天大呼：天者3，曰：吾无罪。昆第3人皆流涕，拔剑自杀。宗室震恐。公子高欲奔，恐收族，乃上书曰：先帝无恙时，臣入则赐食，出则剩余；御府之衣，臣得赐之；终究之宝马，臣得赐之。臣当从死而不能， 为人子不孝，为人臣不忠。不孝不忠者，无名以立于世，臣请从死，愿葬骊山之族。为上幸哀怜之。书上20大说，赵高而视之，曰：此可谓疾乎？赵高曰：人臣当忧死而不暇，何变之得谋？20可其书，赐钱10万以葬。复作阿房宫。晋征才士5万人为屯卫咸阳，令校舍。狗马禽兽当食者多，度不足，下调郡县，转书书宿，除稿，皆令自积粮食。咸阳300里内不得食其谷。秋7月，阳城人陈胜、杨贾人吴广起兵于齐。是时，发旅左戍渔阳900人，屯大泽乡。陈胜、吴广皆为屯长。会天大雨，道不通，渡以失期。失期，发皆斩。陈胜、吴广因天下之仇怨，乃杀将尉，诏令徒属曰：公等皆失期当斩。假令5斩而数，死者故16、7。且壮士不死则已，死则举大名耳。王侯将相宁有种乎？众皆从之。乃诈称公子扶苏、项燕为谈而盟，称大楚。陈胜自立为将军，吴广为都尉。攻大泽乡，拔之，收而攻其下。乃令扶黎人葛英将兵训其以东，攻至赞、苦、浙、乔，皆下之。行收兵，比至陈，车6、700乘，其1000余，卒数万人。攻陈，陈守，未皆不在，独守城与栈桥门中，不胜，守城死。陈胜乃入拒陈。初，大梁人张耳、陈馀相与为文景交。秦灭魏，文2人谓之名士，重赏购求之。张耳、陈馀乃变名姓，拒之陈，为李监门以自食。李立常以过吃陈馀，陈馀欲起，张耳啮之，使受吃。立去，张耳乃引陈馀之桑下，数之曰：使吾与公言何如？今见小辱而欲死一立乎？陈馀谢之。陈涉既入陈、张耳、陈馀一门上。夜，陈涉素闻其贤，大喜。陈中豪杰父老，请立涉为楚王。涉以问张耳、陈馀。馀对曰：秦为无道，灭人社稷，暴虐百姓。将军除万死之计，为天下除残也。今使至陈而亡之，是天下私。愿将军无亡，即引兵而西。遣人立6国后，自为数党，为秦一敌。敌多则力分，与众则兵强。如此，则也无交兵，县无守城。诸暴秦，据咸阳，以令诸侯。诸侯亡而得利，以德服之。如此，则地业成矣。今独亡陈，恐天下谢也。陈涉不听，遂自立为王，号张楚。当世时，诸郡献苦秦法，征杀长吏以应赦。业者使从东方来，以反者闻。20怒，下之令。后使者至，上问之，对曰：群盗鼠窃狗偷，郡守魏方主捕，今尽得，不足忧也。上曰：陈王以吴书为假王，监诸将以西击荥阳。张耳、陈馀复说陈王，请骑兵北掠赵地。于是陈王以故所善陈人武臣为将军，少骚为护军，以张耳、陈馀为左右校尉，羽卒3000人，训赵。陈王又令汝阴人邓宗训9将军。当此时，楚兵数千人为惧者，不可胜数。葛英至东城，立襄强为楚王。闻陈王已立，因杀襄强还报。陈王诛杀葛英。陈王令魏人周勃北训魏地，以上蔡人防军蔡赐为上柱国。陈王闻周文，陈之贤人也，习兵，乃与之将军印，使西击秦。武臣等从白马渡河，至诸县，说其豪杰，豪杰皆应之。乃行收兵，得数万人。号武臣为武信军。下诏失于城，于皆城守。乃引兵东北击范阳。范阳蒯彻说武信军曰：足下必将战胜，而后掠地，攻得然后下城，臣妾以为过矣。诚听臣之计，可不攻而降城，不战而掠地，传檄而千里定，可乎？武信军曰：何谓也？彻曰：范阳令徐公为死而贪，欲先天下降。君若以为秦所致力，诛杀如前10城，则边地之城皆为金城、汤池，不可攻也。君若击臣后印以受范阳令，使城诸轮华谷，驱驰燕、赵之交，及燕、赵城可无战而降矣。武信军曰：善。以车100乘，骑200，侯印迎徐公。燕、赵闻之，不战，以城下者30余城。陈王既遣周章 以秦政之乱，有轻秦之意，不复设备。博士孔复谏曰：臣闻兵法，不视敌之不我攻，是无不可攻。今王视敌而不自视，若敌而不振，悔之无及也。陈王曰：寡人之君，先生无类焉。周文行收兵至关，车千乘，卒数十万至系，军焉。二世乃大惊，与群臣谋曰：奈何？少府张邯曰：道已至，众强，今发进献，不及矣。骊山徒多，请赦之，受兵以击之。二世乃大赦天下，使张邯免骊山徒，人奴产子，西发以击楚军，大败之。周文走。张耳、陈馀至邯郸，文周张阙，又闻诸将为陈王训弟还者，多以谗毁得罪诸，乃说武信君令自亡。8月，武信君自立为赵王，以陈馀为大将军，张耳为右丞相，少骚为左丞相，使人报陈王。陈王大怒，欲尽族武信君等家，而发兵击赵。相国防军谏曰：秦未亡，而诛武信君等家，此生亦秦也，不如因而贺之，使其引兵西击秦。陈王然之，从其计，喜系武信君等家宫中，封张耳子敖为成都军，使者贺赵，令去发兵西入关。张耳、陈馀说赵王曰：王赵，非楚邑，特以祭贺王。楚以灭秦，必加兵于赵。愿王无西兵，北训燕、代，南收河内以自广。赵南据大河，北有燕、代，楚虽胜秦，必不敢制赵；不胜秦，必重赵。赵成秦，楚之弊，可以得志于天下。赵王以为然，因不西兵，而使韩广略燕，李良略常山，张衍略上党。9月，沛人刘邦起兵于沛，下相人项梁起兵于吴，敌人田丹起兵于齐。刘邦，字季，为人龙准、龙颜，左骨有72黑子。哀人喜诗，亦或如也。常有大度，不是家人生产作业。初为四上亭长，善妇人吕公，好乡人，见计壮貌，其之以女妻之。继而既以亭长为献宋徒骊山，徒多悼亡。自度比至皆亡之，道封西泽中庭，直饮夜，乃解纵所宋徒曰：公等皆去，无亦从此事矣。途中壮士愿从者10余人。刘季备酒，夜景泽中，有大蛇当境，即拔剑斩蛇。有老妪哭曰：吾子，白弟子也，化为蛇，当道。今赤弟子杀之，因乎不见。刘季亡匿于芒砀山泽岩石之间，硕有奇怪。沛中子弟闻之，多欲附者。及陈涉起，沛令欲以沛迎之。愿主力萧何。曹参曰：君为秦吏，今欲备之，率沛子弟，恐不听。愿君召诸王在外者，可得数百人，因节众，众不敢不听。乃令樊哙召刘季。刘季之众已数十百人矣。沛令后悔，恐其有变，乃必成城守，欲诛萧、曹。萧、曹恐，于城保刘季。刘季乃书伯射城上，一沛父老，为臣利害。父老乃率子弟共杀沛令，开门迎刘季，立以为沛公。萧、曹等为收沛子弟，得2、3千人，以应诸侯。项梁者，楚将相晏子也，常杀人，与兄子及必仇吴中。吴中贤士大夫皆出其下。及少时学书不成，去学剑又不成。项梁怒之，即曰：书足以记名姓而已，剑一人敌，不足学，学万人敌。于是项梁乃教集兵法，即大喜，略知其意，又不肯径学。及长8尺余，力能刚鼎，才气过人。会稽守殷通闻陈涉起，欲发兵以应赦，使项梁及桓楚将。是时桓楚王在泽中。梁曰：桓楚王，人莫知其处，独及知之耳。梁乃出戒疾，持剑居外，复入，与守坐，曰：请召集，使受命召桓楚。守曰：诺。梁召即入。须臾，梁炫即曰：可行矣。于是即遂拔剑斩首头。项梁持首头，佩其印绶。门下大惊，扰乱。即所击杀数十百人，一府中皆设伏，莫敢起。梁乃召顾所知豪吏，欲以所为起大事，遂举吴中兵，使人收下县，得精兵8000人。梁为会稽守，即为皮将，训下县。即是10年24。田丹者，故其王族也。丹从弟荣，荣弟恒，皆豪健，宗强，能得人。周勃训弟制敌，敌成守。田丹降为父其奴，从少年之庭，欲夜杀奴，见敌令，因击杀令，而赵豪立子弟曰： 诸侯皆反秦自立。其古之建国也，丹田氏当王，遂自立为齐王，发兵以击周勃。周勃军还去，田丹率兵东略定其地。韩广将兵北训燕，燕帝豪杰欲共立广为燕王。广曰：广母在赵，不可。燕人曰：赵方西忧秦，南忧楚，其力不能尽我。且以楚之强，不敢害赵王将相之家，赵独安敢害将军家乎？韩广乃自立为燕王。居数月，赵封燕王母家属归之。赵王与张耳、陈于北略地燕界，赵王坚出，为燕军所得，燕求之，欲求割地，使者王请，燕折杀之。有司养卒走燕壁，见燕将曰：君知张耳、陈于何欲？曰：欲得其王耳。赵养卒笑曰：君未知此两人所欲也。复陈、张耳、陈于仗马垂下赵数10城，此亦各欲南面而亡，其欲为将相中以邪？故其事初定，未敢参分而亡，且以少长先立武臣为王，以持赵心。今赵地已服，此两人亦欲分赵而亡，实未可耳。今君乃求赵王，此两人名为求赵王，实欲燕杀之，此两人分赵自立。夫以一赵上一燕，况以两贤王左提右挈而责杀王之罪，灭燕亦矣。燕将乃归赵王，养卒为御而归。周勃自狄还，至魏地，欲立故魏公子宁陵君就为王。就在陈，不得之位。魏地定，诸侯皆欲立周勃为魏王。是曰：天下昏乱，忠臣乃见。今天下共叛秦，其意必立魏王后来可。诸侯故请立事，是终辞不受，迎魏就于陈，无反。陈王乃遣之，立就为魏王，是为魏相。是岁，2世废魏军角为庶人，魏爵嗣。此为播放列表合集系列视频之一，同款电子书。Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. More videos available in the playlist collections. Matching ebook included. If you have any suggestions, feel free to let me know. 谢谢您点赞、订阅、关注，欢迎您的雅正。